President Trump sat down for a rare interview with a network that wasn't Fox News. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Trump almost never does interviews with anyone other than a friendly outlet, like, for example, Fox and Friends. In fact, he just did one with them on Friday, where they kicked off the interview with this hard-hitting exchange.
It is the president's birthday as well.
The president is turning 73 today, and he is joining us by phone right now. Good morning to you, Mr. President.
Good morning.
Happy birthday. How do you plan to celebrate?
Well, I think I'll just work, if you want to know the truth. When you say
Doesn't
celebrate.
surprise us.
You got to have a
I don't have
cake
time
or
to
something.
celebrate.
What about a cake?
Yeah, we'll have a little piece of cake tonight.
They talk about him like he's a child. The president turned 73 today, and that's why we're doing our show live on location from Chuck E. Cheese. So that is, right there, that's the kind of interview Trump's used to. Also, you can see why, because when Trump sat down with ABC anchor George Stephanopoulos, he was tripped up by even the simplest questions. For example, Trump has blocked Democrats in Congress from reviewing his financial records. In the ABC interview, Trump tried to claim there was nothing suspicious in those records, but he couldn't get past the fact that his chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, who was in the room, was coughing during his answer.
They're after my financial statement, the Senate. They'd like to get my financial statement. At some point, I hope they get it.
You're going to turn it over?
No, at some point, I might. But at some point, I hope they get it, because it's a fantastic financial statement. It's a fantastic financial statement. And let's do that over. He's coughing in the middle of my answer.
Yeah, okay.
I don't like that, you know?
When your chief of staff.
If you're going to cough, please leave the room.
Get a shot of, and I'll come over here.
You just can't.
Just to change the shot.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, do you want to do that a little differently then?
Yeah, we just changed the angle.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
So at some point, I look forward to, frankly, I'd like to have people see my financial statement.
Just remember that the next time Donald Trump says he has a great health care plan, the plan is, if you cough, get the out of here. Now, it's not that I feel bad for Mick Mulvaney, but you know there's a pretty good chance they set up the cough as a signal and Trump forgot. If I accidentally start saying I want Congress to see my financial records, give me some kind of signal, something simple like a cough. Sure, but won't a cough be distracting? No, a cough is great. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna lose my mind when I hear a cough. Also, I love that Trump thinks his answer was so good that the coughing ruined it. Dude, you'd be better off if every answer you gave was interrupted by coughing. Like what, for example, what does this mean?
They'd like to get my financial statement. At some point, I hope they get it.
You won't give it to them, but you hope they get it? What does that mean? Are you playing hard to get? Oh, you want my financial statement? Well, it's right here. Chase me. Chase me. Yeah. But the fun part of this interview was watching Stephanopoulos set Trump up by tossing him a few softballs that were right in his wheelhouse in order to warm him up, and then hitting him with the tough questions. For example, there was a part where Stephanopoulos greeted Trump in the morning and asked him how much sleep he got, and the conversation veered into which meals Trump likes the most.
How much sleep?
Probably I average 4 or 5 hours, I guess.
Are you a big breakfast guy?
I'm not a breakfast guy at all, fortunately. I like the lunches, but the dinners is what I really like.
Now that's the kind of interview Trump likes to give. He wants you the same questions you'd ask while FaceTiming with your grandpa in his retirement home. How was your birthday, Grandpa? Did you have breakfast? Oh, you like dinner more? That's great. Is someone coughing in the background? Oh, everyone's coughing. Okay. Also, by the way, how predictable is it that Trump is anti-breakfast? Of course Trump is against the most important meal of the day. I don't like to front-load my energy. I like to fill up my belly at night and have a fitful sleep so I wake up nice and paranoid. But this is how you rope-a-dope Trump. You bring the rope, he brings the dope. You soften him up with a dumb question like this to get him going, and then you hit him with a tougher one about something like the Mueller report. And when Stephanopoulos did that, Trump was clearly thrown off kilter.
If you answer these questions to me now, why not answer them to Robert Mueller under oath?
Because they were looking to get us for lies, for slight misstatements.
You didn't answer
18
questions
people.
on obstruction.
No, wait a minute. I did answer questions. I answered them in writing.
Not on
I don't know about
obstruction.
those. I don't know. I answered a lot of questions. They gave me questions. I answered them in writing.
Not an obstruction.
Look, George, you're being a little wise guy, okay? Which is, you know, typical for you.
Did you just call him a little wise guy? Did you also tell him to go home and get his shine box? Every time you think Trump couldn't sound more like a Scorsese character, he finds a way. This interview should have had a voiceover from Henry Hill.
Why not answer them to Robert Mueller under oath?
I knew they were cops. Only cops talk that way. If they had been wise guys, I wouldn't have heard a thing.
Stephanopoulos also asked Trump about the evidence contained in the Mueller report that he obstructed justice. In fact, more than 1,000 former prosecutors signed a letter saying that there was enough evidence to indict Trump. But when Stephanopoulos asked Trump about that, Trump dismissed it.
Robert Mueller said he's not reaching a decision, could not exonerate you. And he laid out all that evidence. More than 1,000 formal federal prosecutors.
But they're all politicians. Hey, George, look, I know more about prosecutors than you'll ever know.
That doesn't sound as good as you think it sounds. That's like if you're watching Law & Order with a buddy and they go, see, his mistake was throwing the body in the river without weighing it down. You gotta weigh it down. Everybody knows that. And of course, Stephanopoulos also got Trump to make his shocking admission that if a foreign government offered him dirt on a political opponent, he would definitely take it.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
Wow, dude, you would have been better off if that answer had been interrupted by coughing.
Should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen.
Stop coughing, I'm good. But in a way, it was at least refreshing to finally get an honest confession from Trump, because before this interview, Trump was still pretending he had no interest in colluding with a foreign government. For one thing, there were the all-caps tweets screaming no collusion, and last week, Trump even lied to reporters and claimed the Mueller report had actually shown that his campaign rejected contacts from the Russian government. Trump made that comment while sitting next to the president of Poland, and he couldn't help but get him involved.
The Mueller report spoke. They were very disappointed. It said no collusion and no obstruction and no nothing. And in fact, it said we actually rebuffed your friends from Russia.
His friends? Why? Why are you dragging him into it? Are you trying to frame him? I had nothing to do with Russia, but you should talk to this guy over here. He's guilty as hell. So with all this going on, you'd be forgiven for not trusting Trump when it comes to Russia. And even if you put aside Trump's latest comments, there's all the damning evidence about his campaign's contacts with Russia, his constant praise for Vladimir Putin, and even how excited Trump is to see him. I mean, look at that. Even Putin seems kind of bummed to be with him. This looks like a family photo of a corny dad on a road trip with his goth teen. They should be at the Grand Canyon. Can you at least smile for one picture? We drove 30 hours. I let you listen to your music in the camper. Well, if you are concerned, apparently you're not alone. As we learned this weekend, even intelligence officials don't trust Trump with sensitive information when it comes to Russia.
The United States is reportedly ramping up cyber attacks on Russia's electric power grid. And the New York Times says potentially crippling malware has been placed deeper into the Russian grid than ever before.
This from the New York Times story. Two administration officials said they believe Mr. Trump had not been briefed in any detail. Pentagon intelligence officials described broad hesitation to go into detail with Mr. Trump about operations against Russia for concern over his reaction and the possibility he might countermand it or discuss it with foreign officials.
Wow, they can't even give the President of the United States sensitive details about Russia because they're afraid he'll blab about it to Putin. This is probably why Trump spends all of his time showing off new paint colors for Air Force One, because that's the only thing his aides trust him to do. That's why Putin looks so bummed in those photos. Do you have any classified secrets, Donald? Oh, yeah, we're painting Air Force One red, white, and blue. Trump keeps going on TV. Keeps going on TV and giving us more evidence against him. Meanwhile, Democrats are having a weird debate over whether they should impeach him or focus on beating him in 2020. If anything, it seems like the answer is simple.
You do both.
This has been a closer look.